minute.
Have a seat. I wanted to talk to you. You're almost 30 years old, and you're not really yourself anymore. When you were young, you were so adventurous. You were willing to try new things. And I mean, we loved you for it. I mean, what else did we have back then? Hide-Glide? Hide-Glide? Please wait outside. I'll be with you in just a moment. Sorry about that. I mean, I feel like you've fallen into a routine. You're just doing the same stuff over and over again, trying to please us. I mean, you don't need to do that. I know where you've gone wrong, and I think you should just hear me out. The key to adventure is simplicity. I'm serious. The simpler the game, the more you could do with it. Back in '86, he gave us a little game, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called The Legend of Zelda. It was a beautifully constructed game that allowed us nerds to get lost within a new realm known as Hyrule. From that, we were given amazing sequels that continued to let us explore and wonder what we might discover next. That was until you forced this monstrosity into our consoles. The Twilight Princess had so much potential, and yet it managed to squander everything about it. Living off the light world, dark world trope that was used in A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time. Living off. That's a poor choice of words. It's more like Frankenstein the shit out of it, am I right? Because like the monster, the game is sickly and yellow looking. Sorry. Following in the footsteps of the two most popular Zelda titles, Twilight Princess manages to run everything into the ground. And we ate that shit up because it was Zelda, and Zelda can do no wrong. Seriously, Twilight Princess across GameCube and Wii outsold Ocarina of Time on the N64. This is our new template for Zelda games. Don't believe me? Look what it spawned. Why? Why was this so bad? Why do I hate this game with such animosity, such abhorrence? Well, first off, they went from a game that had breathtaking graphics and a wonderful sense of adventure, and they said, "That won't do. Let's just cover up mediocre graphics with blurry glow effects, and take everything that Link was in the past and give them some bad ripoff of Okami." Yes, game designers are snooty noblemen, in my imagination. Do you got a problem with that? You don't know. You a game designer? Are you a snooty nobleman? The introduction of the game took over 2 hours to complete. You might think that this is an overstatement, but it isn't. What took us 15 minutes in Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past is now dragged out over 2 pointless goat herding minigames, a fairly decent fetch quest, an excessive amount of dialogue that doesn't do anything for the game, and a jaunt through the same forest 3 freaking times! The worst part about it is that there was a goat wrestling event that could be completely bypassed, and it teaches you a technique that gets used multiple times throughout the game, including in the last boss fight. Why would you force so much on us and leave that out? Zelda has become so formulaic recently, it's sickening. There's no need to explore Hyrule because it's just a vast and empty area that bottlenecks into more vast and empty areas. The only treasure you find are heart pieces, of which you find more than rupees. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't know what a rupee is? Well, in case you forgot since the last time you turned on your game, Twilight Princess will constantly remind you. Starting off with Epona, the horse, was a big deal for a lot of fans of Ocarina of Time. Back in Ocarina, it was amazing. You could never ride a horse in the 2D games, so riding across Hyrule Field felt so visceral and exciting. It made travel faster and it gave you access to new areas, which was important for an adventure game. It has lost its meaning in Twilight Princess, however. Since you start off with the horse, the little fences are nothing but a minor inconvenience. If the game wants to trap you in an area, they just take away your horse. This creates frustration. Rather than having a new obstacle to overcome, they just strip you of the tools to overcome a simple hurdle. The Wolf Link was another huge highlight to this game. Unfortunately, it also falls flat. You have the same abilities through the entire game. There's no depth beyond the first moment you turn into a wolf. You have the same amount of abilities as a single mask in Majora's Mask, and that game still had 2 more masks with full sets of abilities. You move almost as fast as Epona in this form, making Epona more and more obsolete, and eventually you'll gain the ability to teleport to different areas. The bug hunts seem to be placed into the game just to force the player to play as the wolf, and since you rarely use the wolf form in any of the dungeons, it seems like a complete waste. If you want to play a beautiful and well-designed game where you play as a wolf with a sassy sidekick, pick up Okami. There's a significant problem with the way you find the items in this game. Most of them are just given to you, and all the important ones are just found throughout the dungeons. There's no reason to explore the world. In A Link to the Past, just finding the ice rod was amazing. You'd be exploring the world and you find a crack in the wall. So you blow it up and crawl inside and there's a treasure chest. Opening up the treasure chest, you find the ice rod. It was fantastic. You didn't need it, but it made the game more fun. You could freeze enemies, you could pick them up, throw them at other enemies, or off cliffs. Or you could freeze them and take out the magic hammer and smash them into a million pieces. The game rewarded you for exploring the world. Twilight Princess starts you off with a slingshot, which becomes obsolete by the time you reach the first dungeon and find the boomerang. Both of these items are quickly forgotten once you reach the second and third dungeons and find the bow and the claw shot respectively. This is sad that Zelda needs so many wasted weapons. The slingshot is a very dangerous weapon, and if you gave the player some different ammo, like in Oracle of Seasons, it could be a very interesting tool throughout the game. Or bring back the tri-shot. Give Link a shotgun slingshot. I mean, you could use it to clear out a room of keys, or blast away a swarm of enemies. I mean, come on, come to me, I'm full of great ideas. The ball and chain gave me such high hopes. It felt good taking it from the enemy that originally used it. It was a nice reference to the enemy from A Link to the Past, and there was weight to wielding it. You moved slower, you felt like a badass swinging it. Unfortunately, its uses outside of the dungeon you find it in are limited, and the sword remains a more effective weapon than the ball and chain in every way. A couple of the items are nothing more than glorified keys. For example, the Dominion Rod. It's essentially the command melody from Wind Waker, but it's kind of in a more streamlined form. Unfortunately, it's only really used in the one dungeon. In Wind Waker, the command melody was just a song. It wasn't a full-blown item. You could use that song in a few areas to unlock a secret, or use it in 2 or more dungeons to manipulate the NPCs to help you solve puzzles. It had its uses, and it didn't take up a whole item slot. Boss battles in Twilight Princess have become formulaic and dull. There's no sense of interesting qualities to them. Boss has attack pattern A. Hit him with the dungeon weapon. Boss is stunned, run up and slash him with the sword. Repeat. This isn't a boss fight, this is a formula. Dark Souls, Shadows of the Colossus, Mega Man X. These are games that get boss battles right. They're engaging and entertaining, and they're challenging. You don't have to make the bosses in Legend of Zelda as hard as these games, but just make them feel like a fight. When Ocarina of Time first came out, it felt like such an upgrade, taking Link into the third dimension. Walking into the first boss room was monumental. The room was empty. You stumble around in the dark with this eerie chittering noise. You remember that you can look around, so you look up and there's this creepy eye staring back at you. Goma has been seen before in Legend of Zelda and A Link's Awakening, but never like this. The fight itself was simple, and the developers knew that boss fights in 3D Zelda games would be uncharted waters, so they focused on creating an atmosphere. There's been 8 years between Ocarina and Twilight Princess to improve upon the combat of the 3D Zelda games. With the exception of Star-Lord, the battles are all unmemorable. In fact, most mid-level bosses are more interesting. Death Sword, Dark Hammer, and the Dark Nut are far more interesting battles than any other battles in the game. Zant had the potential and the build-up, but flopped by being a twist of all of the bosses you've already fought. It's sad because Zant was the interesting and brilliant villain that this game needed, and he would have been the perfect last boss. Brilliant is an awesome, not an intellect. Zant was a moron. While the game is flawed and the subplot is terrible, the actual story is quite interesting. This game had so much potential, but like myself, squandered all of it. The game fails by trying to incorporate a love interest for Link. They set up and build up so much between Ilia and Link, but by the climax, she just gives you a horse whistle, shoos you out the door, and that's the end of it. She's pretty much forgotten for the rest of the game. Midna is one of the best things to come out of this game. She's deep and interesting, and she has this awkward, creepy thing going on that made teenage boys very uncomfortable with themselves. I assume. At first, you think she's out for her own gains, forcing you to work with her. Later, it's revealed that she's trying to fulfill a prophecy that will save the Light World and the Twilight Realm. She goes through a character arc. She hides her selfless acts to save the world, which in turn speaks wonders about her character. This game is truly about her. At least the title is aptly named. She is the real hero of this game. Along with Midna came another great character, Zant. He seemed like an all-powerful, stoic being who cared only about power. But that's basically Ganon in every Zelda game, so why make a new character to fill this role? But then this happens. Zant served the royal family for years in hopes that they would see him as a suitable ruler for the Twilight Realm. But he was too ambitious, and the Twilight saw his lust for power and denied him. In a jealous rage and in desperation, Zant turned to a dark force for help, Ganon. Instantly, you lose that stoic, bland, run-of-the-mill villain, and you have this flawed whelp that sold out his kingdom for the taste of true power. Midna and Zant hold the most deep and interesting plot in the entire game, and yet it's bogged down with the necessity to try and glorify the Link, Zelda, and Ganon triangle. In conclusion, the game is just truly about lost potential. They try too hard to make the story epic, and it comes across clunky and overstuffed. While the level design is quite good, the world feels empty and hollow. There are only 3 memorable characters in this entire game. That's Midna, Zant, and this goddamn baby. And while they tried to make the game have cool controls and beautiful graphics, they forgot the important part of Zelda, the adventure. The game feels like an overly complex connect the dots. Zelda doesn't need a deep plot-driven story. It needs a simple story with a grand world to explore. I had pretty much given up on Zelda games, but then A Link Between Worlds came out, and while I was very hesitant on a sequel to my all-time favorite Zelda game, I've been very impressed with the world and the seamless gameplay mechanics. The real question is, can the new open-world Zelda that Nintendo is working on bring back the true feel of Zelda? Or will it fall into the crippling faults of Twilight Princess? I guess only time will tell. Do you... anything to say? Everybody's a critic. Hi everyone, I'm James. Thank you for watching my video. Be sure to subscribe, give us a like, check out Tara's stuff. I don't know why I'm pointing. I don't know why you're still here. Video's over.